Are you tired of the crappy saturation of baked potatoes? Are you tired of your friends asking you for your wheat so they can eat bread? Does the idea of cow crushers to get your meat annoy the crap out of you? Do you want to have enough food for you and your entire server to last a lifetime? Then let's check out my 3 levels of Hoglin farms. So let's get to it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another 3-level series. This one is going to be on Hoglin farming. Primary purpose is going to be for cooked pork chop. We'll get into that when we get into the mechanics of it. So as usual, down in the video description are going to be timestamps along with the world download of what you're going to see here. First we're going to look at an edit of the farms, then we're going to get into the Hoglin mechanics, and then we're going to look at each of the farms individually. So let's go check that edit out now. So as you can see, we can get just a little bit of pork chop. So we're going to be primarily farming cooked pork chop from the Hoglins. That way we don't have to cook any food. Whenever we need food on our single player or on our server, you can just run over there, grab some stacks, grab a shulker box of them, and you're good to go with food for a while. Pork chop and steak have some of the best saturation in the game, and so steak used to be the real coveted item because it was a good mid-ground between saturation versus how many haunches it would fill up on your hunger bar. And it was preferred over pork chop because when you farm cows, you're also going to get the leather along with them. Well, then comes 1.16 and gives us the Hoglin, and now it's significantly easier to farm them because they can spawn naturally using the hostile mob cap. So they're not the passive mob cap rules anymore, where it's nearly impossible to get a farm set up for them. It's not impossible. It's a lot of work in order to get up a passive mob farm for the drops that you get versus what you saw in that edit, what you're going to get from your cooked pork chop rates. So Hoglins can spawn in 2 places in the Minecraft world, one being in the Crimson Forest biome in the Nether, and then they can also spawn as part of Bastion generation. However, those are such small areas and hard to find, it's just not worth it. We're going to stick to the Crimson biome. The Crimson biome also has only 3 mobs that it can spawn. There's the Hoglins, piglins, and then zombified piglins. However, we can limit our spawning specifically to hoglins because of the light level requirements they have. So we can see from using the pink carpet, we can get zombified piglins, hoglins, and piglins. However, based on light level, we can restrict it to just spawning hoglins. So zombified piglins and piglins, they both need a light level of 11 or less. So here we can spawn those, but here in the 12, can't. Now it's saying we can't fit hoglin because I've got other carpets there. So you do need a 3x3 area available in order for them to spawn. Turn on their hitbox there. We can see that their hitbox is pretty large. It's less than 2 tall, but it's spread out pretty far over those blocks. When a hoglin dies, it will drop between 2 to 4 pork chop on death. But that's going to be raw. Now, I did say we were going to be farming cooked pork chop, and that's because if a hoglin dies while it is on fire, they will then drop cooked pork chop. Another interesting thing is hoglins are actually scared of a few types of blocks. First, there are the portal blocks. So if they are within 7 blocks of a portal block, they will try and run away in the opposite direction. Respawn anchors and warped fungus. We have a couple designs today that are going to use the warp fungus, so you are going to need to find yourself a warp forest or get yourself some warp nylium and do a little bit of bone meal farming with that. Just because the respawn anchor is pretty expensive. You need 3 glowstone blocks and 6 crying obsidian. So if you've already got yourself a piglin bartering setup and you just don't know what to do with that extra crying obsidian, you can change that out for these respawn anchors, but usually the fungus is going to be much easier to find. Now, unfortunately, the light level of a portal is 11, so zombified piglins and piglins could still spawn on this spot in a crimson forest, but we can use light blocks to raise that up to light level 12, and now the only thing that can spawn there is hoglins. In this case, we would actually need to extend out the portal a bit so that they have that 3x3 area that they can spawn in, but then they would be able to spawn in here and go directly to the overworld. When you get them to the overworld, you've actually got to make sure you kill them pretty quickly because you can see he's shaking now. Just like the piglins when they go to the overworld, this guy is going to zombify. And when he zombifies, they are going to become aggroed on almost every mob in the game. So they won't aggro on things like creepers, but all your panda friends are in trouble. I haven't gone through the entire list of mobs to see what they aggro on. That's not really what the point of this video is. We just want to make sure that when we are sending them to the overworld, we're killing them fast enough so that they don't have time to zombify. Because on top of aggroing everything, when a zoglin dies, it drops nothing but rotten flesh. So we get no pork chop, no leather. And for our purposes of farming, that's really all we need to know about hoglins. As always, the world download with these 3 farms is going to be down in the video description. We're going to have the 3 farms that we're going to be reviewing, as well as the mid-range option that was shown. There's one without the deco and one with the deco. Deco is by our lovely Mocraft20. You can check her out on Twitch. She does a lot of building stuff in Minecraft. So, boom. This Cyberpunk Watchtower build has the farm built inside of it. There's the storage down here, so you've got nice, easy access to it. So you've got a nice, clean build with access to your stuff. So let's get into version 1. Remember, version 1 is quick and dirty, so the rules are as cheap as possible. Even with low rates, we're looking for a very quick build. So something that you can just get up in, and in this case, we're talking like 5 minutes. And this is all there is to it. Your most expensive materials are going to be the 4 warped fungus that you need to get. But again, finding 4 warped fungus down in the nether is not that difficult. And then a bucket of lava, again, in the nether, not that difficult to find. I even changed out the iron trapdoors that we saw in that edit video to just wooden trapdoors because those aren't going to burn in this configuration. And this doesn't even need to be glass. I just did it as glass just so you can see what's going on inside the chamber. But that can be cobblestone, that can be dirt, that can be whatever you want. Just don't make this out of wood materials like wooden planks or anything because the lava, fire, farm go. So all we have is just 2 platforms of dirt, and the dirt is the spawning spaces. And the warp fungus up there, we have a wall on top of the warp fungus so that hoglins can't actually spawn on there, because if they spawn inside the block, they don't act scared of it until they move outside of the block. Then we have torches here to keep the light level of the platform all above 11, so it's at 12. We have walls and stairs that we're using for our blocks so that pack spawns can go through them and wander into the spawning platform. There's cobblestone bottom slabs around here as a spawning skirt to raise up the height map to that level. You can actually extend this out, so the maximum amount is by 20 blocks because a pack spawn of 4 can move up to 20 blocks. However, again, since this is the quick and dirty, we just wanted to do just 5 here, so it's not that wide, so you can get it up nice and quick. It's still going to bring in much more pack spawns because you do get a diminishing return when you start going further out and further out. So they spawn on a platform, they get scared of the warped fungus, and they start running away. This trapdoor makes the big ones think that they can just walk right over to the other side, but they obviously fall into the lava. And then we have trapdoors under the lava so that they are not actually dying inside of lava. You could also use things like open fence gates in order to hold the lava up, but you just want to make sure that lava is suspended up while the hoglins have a place to come down. Now, you notice that the babies still survive up in there. We would actually have to put slabs in there to ensure that the babies die as well. But since this farm is not dependent on running at mob cap at all, we're not really concerned with the babies. And then you want to put your AFK spot way up in the air so that your despawn sphere includes the farm, but then doesn't include anything below the nether roof. This will mean that you will have to get to the nether roof. There are a bunch of different methods. I have one method on my channel that you can check out. There are plenty of others out there that work just as well. So find your preferred method, get yourself away to the nether roof. And then after that, this is a, quick and easy build. And that's really it. Now, as for the farm that's inside the deco build, we're going to take a look at that. That is an upgraded version of this. So we just have an upgraded collection system and then an increased spawning platform potential. So this is what we have inside that deco build. It's going to be in the world download. We're using these walls up at this level. They're not really necessary, but you're going to want to have some at least at the bottom because the hoglins will sometimes spook and run off, and then you're going to have hoglins running around your storage area. We're using jack-o'-lanterns here as opposed to the torches. So jack-o'-lanterns are a light emitting block of level 15, but they are also a solid block. So the hoglins can still spawn on top of jack-o'-lanterns. And that just gives us a nice cleaner look. We increase the spawning skirt out a little bit. But again, this is still not at its full potential. But I was going for a nice mix of build versus value. So if we had put this out to its full 20, at that point, the build kind of would have become more boxy than tall. So we worked together and kind of made a compromise. So we're losing a little bit of those pack spawn potentials, but at the same time, we're still making rates. This is still going to be 32,000 an hour, even with the deco. Now, as far as the collection, in this case, we are actually concerned about the babies. So you notice the babies will fall through, and they won't completely die. So there's one at 12 health, one at 18 health. We need a way to kill them off. So you'll notice there's pistons over here, and those are also on this same item dispenser clock. So what we have is whenever adults are dying and their items are going to the hoppers, it's going to turn on this clock. And these pistons are going to go back and forth. Now, the reason that we have those pistons instead of just having an open wall and maybe scaring them to one side is because if any of the adults die and their items bounce off to the side on top of those magma blocks, we would actually want to recover those. So those pistons are pushing the items back on there. You can see at this rate, it doesn't really make much of a difference because the babies aren't really going anywhere. But if I put a bot up at the AFK spot, the number of adults that are coming in are going to push those babies off to the side due to entity collisions. So those babies are going to keep coming onto those magma blocks and taking that damage. So this whole clock is based around items going into those hoppers. The items then get shot out of the droppers and up against the chest so that they're pre-aligned. They get pushed down by these sticky pistons with glass on them in front of a slime block, and then they get pushed on the ice path over our item filters. And this is the same model build that is inside the Mocraft Deco build that we have here. We got gears, pulleys, fancy. I would say this would make a nice little bed nook, but don't put beds in the nether. Don't do it. And you can get this build too, just by clicking right there. Now, before I move on to version 2, I do want to show a quick abandoned version I did include. So when I do these 3 levels videos, there are some designs that I make that they die off because I just get to the point where it's not worth the ROI that you're getting from them. So this is one of them. This is where I started out by making extra platforms. So it was going to be a series of extra platforms that were surrounding The problem was I want to send them nether by pushing them into another portal instead of having the nether portals all the way up top, because if you have, they won't run into a nether portal naturally. And so we had block pushers, but then I also had to have this weird setup where there were also hay bales available so that they landed on hay so that they weren't dying from up top. And then when they went to the overworld, they weren't touching the lava and dying inside the lava because we want them to drop, which we'll see in the second version. So this is, I mean, this was working until it kind of screwed up there. It was left on when I pressed this teleport button, so it was outside the chunk loaded area. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But it's there if you want to take a look at it. But the rates that I was getting for how much work it was going to be were just not worth it. I mean, yeah, 56K is higher than 32K, but that 32K is just a quick and easy build, whereas this was getting more complicated, needing a lot more resources to what we actually got on the final version. So if you do this one above the nether roof, no spawn proofing, it's about 220K, a little over that. If you do this one below the nether roof with spawn proofing, it's 420K. Funny number. So let's check this one out. At first glance, this is just more portal spam inside of a fake perimeter. So we've just done everything around this AFK spot in 128 block radius to be spawn proofed. In this case, though, we actually did break up the portals a bit. And if you wanted to save on obsidian, you could actually go every other layer with just these rows of jack-o'-lanterns. Remember, again, jack-o'-lanterns give off light level 15, so they spawn proof from zombified piglins and piglins, but hoglins can still spawn on them. And then they also give light to the side, so that those portals, these two next to it are, so we got 14, 13, and then 12, and then we have 12 and 13 from this one. But using this much obsidian for this many portals is going to be the ideal way, because what's going to happen is sometimes you will have babies spawning on these jack-o'-lanterns, and even though adults would immediately touch and go through, the babies don't. So the babies end up walking along this back and forth for a few seconds until they walk into a portal and get removed. So we have to use this many in order to keep the portals from spawning zombified piglins and piglins. But the number of jack-o'-lanterns that we do have, you don't have that many babies, because like I said, they do stick around for a couple seconds, but they're gone after a couple of seconds. You're still not looking at mob cap with this, so this is really nice. We just have this all the way down to bedrock. You do not need to break out the bedrock for this version, and so that's why I didn't break any of the ground level bedrock. And if you wanted, you don't even have to do any perimeter stuff. You could just build this above the nether roof and then put a glass platform at this height, so at the floor level of the top portal, out 20 blocks surrounding it, or slabs or whatever you wanted to use, you know, leaves, whatever you wanted to use for spawn proof blocks to add that height map skirt. And then you're going to be AFKing up here, which above the roof is going to be way up in the air. So your despawn sphere doesn't even need a perimeter. But because of that extra height map of all this below, you do get lower rates. But it's still 220,000 above the nether roof with no spawn proofing. Or you can over double that with just doing some spawn proofing down here. You could also do a full perimeter if you wanted. You know, there's no reason you couldn't. We're going to be getting into that in version 3, though. So what we have here is all the hoglins are spawning. The adults are all immediately getting teleported to the overworld. The babies are eventually going into the portals. And then let's take a look at the overworld side. Here on the overworld side, we have 2 portals with just a few hoglins falling out. Just a few. But the reason we did 2 is because I do often see a lot on Reddit things like half the farm isn't sending them to the overworld, or half of my portals aren't working. Why not? The reason for that is portal alignment, 100%. If there is a portal in the nether and mobs will not go through it, it is because it does not have a matching portal in the overworld. If you as a player go through it, it will then generate a portal, but mobs don't generate portals. So that's why I've spread these out a little bit. That gives you a little bit more leeway on those exact calculations. But because there's 3 blocks in between there, 3 blocks there, and 3 blocks there, we still have room for them to get out. And because both sides are open, the hoglins are just pushing each other out of the portals. They then fall down a little bit to get some momentum, so they don't slow down too much from the lava, but they hit the lava, start on fire, and then they fall all the way down to the ground where they die and drop their items while they're on fire. As for item collection, we're using a shifting floor, which is nearly impossible to see right now, so let me just stop the spawning. So they fall down from the lava onto this floor here, and what we have is a sequence of sequentially lower blocks, and this gets pushed back and forth, and then the items will fall down each time. You can see the hitbox goes lower each time on these, and then obviously slab, trapdoor, carpet. You can visually see the difference on those. I know it looks backwards that the grass path block should be over here, but you can actually see that the soul sand actually goes lower than that, even though it's rendered taller. So I'm going to just slow down the game a little bit and then manually turn on this floor so you can see that. And then we're using the chain in the middle so that we can push that air block back and forth because we can't have an air block. Now, normally on shifting floor designs, you would use like a fence gate when you're pushing items down. However, this is also our kill spot. So I didn't want any of the baby hoglins, dropping while they're on fire and then landing in the water, having the fire put out, and then starting to build up down here. They would eventually despawn, but it's just entities we don't need. Even though they're not doing anything for us, they have no drops, we still don't want them sticking around. So that's why we're using the chain here, because then items can still fall through, as you saw. There is a tripwire hook that just detects when there are entities coming through there and turns on this pulse extender, which enables that clock to make the shifting floor go back and forth. And then the ice path just carries it through the water over all the item filters. For those of you who have seen my 3 levels videos before, the size of this contraption is going to look familiar, and that's because this is a self-loaded contraption, so we obviously have enough hoglins coming through that portal that it's more than every 10 seconds. It's probably about 10 a second instead, and that keeps this 3x3 chunk area loaded. In this case, we'd actually get a 4x3 because each of these are in separate chunks, and that keeps this area loaded with just it being on single player. And then you get tons of pork chop. And now for the point that you probably all skipped ahead to, the version 3 approaching OP, 1.08 million cooked pork chop per hour. Now, a lot of you might be saying, what do you need 1.08 million cooked pork chop per hour for? I mean, even if somehow you could have hunger always active and you held down your right mouse click, it would take you over 20 days to eat that many cooked pork chop if you were running it 24 hours straight. And that's after just running it for an hour. Why? Because it's fun. That's why. Now we're going to take a look at this. I've still labeled this approaching OP because I'm sure that if you were to hand this over to like the Psycraft crew, they might take like an hour and then just blow this out of the water. Those guys are pretty crazy when it comes to this stuff. But again, these videos are about my levels of farm. So this is what I've come up with. And this is what we've got. So similar to the last one we looked at, we are alternating with the jack-o'-lanterns so that hoglins can still spawn on them. The adults are wide enough that they touch the portal blocks immediately. The babies will eventually wander off into the portals, so we're still not at mob cap. But this time we're doing a full perimeter, and we've broken out the bedrock, so this time we're starting with the bottom obsidian of the portal at Y0. And then broke out the bedrock above this skirt area. So out here, we don't want to raise the height map any higher than we have to. So all the way up to this edge is where the bedrock gets broken out on top. And then if you look carefully, and I'll just turn on the chunk grid here, you'll see normally when you do these 2x2 portal areas in the nether to send it to the overworld, you're just doing just that 2x2, and so you're staying inside that 2x2. However, as you may have seen in the edit, or not if you skipped it, we're actually spreading out those portals so that we can just get a little bit more of an area outside of those chunks. And that's why we have that portal grid in the overworld that we do that we'll take a look at in just a moment, so that everything still lines up. Now, normally that's not a concern. We could just put down a couple extra portals wherever we need to. Personally, when I design farms, I like to set the rule for myself that item collection needs to be all in the same spot. So when you have something where you have, a bunch of portals in the nether, and then they go to, a couple thousand blocks away in the overworld, and you just say, well, these are the 3 places where the kill chambers are. I personally don't like that because then, I've said this in the gold farm, to me that just kind of feels like a farm stacked a couple of times. And you could stack this one a couple of times. You could do some portals over there, some portals over there, and then just do separate spots in the overworld. And then you could easily just, bump it up to 9 million per hour just by doing this 9 times and having 9 kill spots in the overworld. That's just not fun to me. If that's your thing, no problem. I take no offense to it. It's just, again, these are my levels of farms, and this is what I like doing. So you can do whatever you like doing, but we're going to go check out what I did here in the overworld to extend these portals. So we have 9 sliced portals in this grid. It isn't a 5x5 chunk grid. So we have a portal in this chunk, we skip a chunk, we have a portal in this chunk, we skip a chunk, and then we have a portal in the next chunk. Now because of that, because of the rate that we have entities coming in, and because everything is still inside of that grid, that's all going to be self-loaded by the entities coming through these portals. So this is still a single player farm. You don't need this many cooked pork chops in a single player world, but it would be cool if you did. Now, all you would really need is the 4 extreme corners. Those would all still match up. So if you're not in a spot where you want to do the slicing of all these portals, you could skip those, but just take note, you're going to need a good-sized server in order to be able to handle that. Because what's going to happen then is all of the Hoglins that are coming through are going to go through just those 4 instead of spreading out over the 9. And we already kind of have a little bit high of a rate on the MSPT, so we can see baseline is about 5 there. But when you turn it on and get running, the MSPT already goes up a little bit high. You can see that these 4 corner portals are getting prioritized, but we are still getting spawns that are coming through these other portals. And so we're keeping some of the collisions down a bit. And in fact, there we even saw a little bit of a spike there. So this is not something that you would ideally want to run, while everyone's doing their thing on the server. Just kind of turn it on when no one's on and leave it running. And then, leave it running for 8 hours. You've got 8 million pork chop. Each of these modules has that same tripwire detector to turn on that pulse extender to start up this clock. And then this time, since we don't have to use that wider portal, they're just dropping right from that slice portal. We just have them dropping right onto some glass block pushers. All the items then get pushed into the water stream, and we have water stream there and water stream there. They all come over here and merge and get aligned and go over our hoppers. And then we have the items going into a 2x hopper speed shulker loader. Now, compact storage tech is not one of my expertise. There are several people who do some crazy stuff with storage tech. I found this shulker loader on the storage tech Discord by user Command Leo. So if you want to see more about this, you can actually get onto that storage tech Discord channel and check that out. But it works by taking in the filtered items into this top hopper, and then this bottom hopper can not only suck out items, but this one can push it. So it's 2x hopper speed. And then this hopper is pushing into here while this hopper is pulling from here. So again, 2x hopper speed. Then they go into the dropper since there's 2. Again, 2x hopper speed. Then this clock is shooting items out of that dropper into the shulker at, again, 2x hopper speed. And this is one wide tileable. Now you do have to make sure that all of those hoppers and that dropper are filled up with the item that you want to filter out. So in this case, the cooked pork chop. Obviously, this project is going to take a while with all you need to do in the nether and the portal slicing and the perimeter and all that kind of thing. So you're probably going to have up a lower range Hoglin farm in order to get cooked pork chop while you're playing on the server. So you should already have enough pork chop to supply this. And then the only thing I did to modify this was I added on an off detection system. So when this hopper runs out of shulker boxes, that slice is going to turn off by sending the signal up through these torches and then pushing this piston down. And when that piston pushes down, it's going to cut off the redstone so this slice won't filter anymore. It'll just fill up with its cooked pork chop and stay where it is. Because the items going into the shulker are dependent on this dropper getting activated by that clock. So this build, obviously in the overworld and the nether, has some portal slicing involved in it. You can check out the update suppression video by XCOM on YouTube on his channel. That's my preferred update suppressor. And I just wanted to say there have been some things going on in the 119 snapshots that made it look like update suppression was going to go away in 119, but it appears that those changes have been reverted. So at least for now, it looks like we still will have update suppression in 119. So that's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you like what you saw. Again, the world download will be down in the video description, so you can get any of these farms that you've seen here. There is also that mid-range option down in the world download, which didn't really fit into the theme of the 3 levels because it wasn't as cheap as possible, so didn't really fit there. But then at the same time, it wasn't kind of as far as we could push it without using the quote-unquote exploits in the game that a good amount of the Minecraft community doesn't like to use. And then our good friend Mocraft did a build for us to show you that farms can be pretty, but she also proved that Strom can't do that. Sag. All right, hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you later. Have a good one. Bye.